Martin Grohman is Executive Director of the Environmental and Energy Technology Council of Maine, E2 Tech, a statewide nonprofit focused on growing Maine's clean technology economy. Marty is a former state representative and holds a degree in chemical engineering from Rensselaer. Marty also hosts a podcast for Maine entrepreneurs called The Grow Maine Show, which can be heard on WGAN on Sunday mornings, and is a trustee of the Betterment Fund. In previous roles, he co-founded Duralife Decking, a composite decking manufacturing company in Biddeford, and was Director of Sustainability at GAF, North America's largest roofing manufacturer. As a state representative, he was twice named American Legion Legislator of the Year, an honorary life member of the Vietnam Veterans of America, and won the 2016 President's Award from the Maine Sheriff's Association for his work on jail funding. Marty grew up in Carthage, Maine, where his family still runs a small farm keeping Jersey cows. He and his wife, Amy, and their 2 children live in Biddeford.
Welcome to the PR Maven Podcast, a podcast all about growing your network and building your brand through traditional and digital networking techniques. I'm Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. I've been strengthening brands through PR for over 35 years, and now I'm celebrating the success of executives, influencers, business owners, and entrepreneurs from all around the world, all of whom have cultivated their brands and broadened their networks through traditional and digital networking methods. Each week, I interview one of these interesting and influential individuals and provide an opportunity for you, the PR Maven Nation, to gain insights from their strategies and stories. So stay tuned for this week's episode, and thanks for listening.
So, Marty, to kick things off, tell us about your career and how you got into it in the first place.
Well, thanks, Nancy. I'm Executive Director of E2 Tech, which is the Environmental and Energy Technology Council of Maine. Somebody said to me at a networking event, maybe have those again, recently, geez, you've tried a bunch of different things. I think the second half of the sentence might have been, but never went that far in many of them. But anyway, I'm the youngest of 8 kids. I grew up in a farm in western Maine, a little town called Carthage, which is near Mount Blue State Park and Tumbledown. A lot of people know Tumbledown. I milked the cows before school every day. My family still keeps cows, Jersey cows, the brown ones with the black noses, the best kind, may I say. And but I wanted to get away from the farm, like a lot of farm kids. So I went away to engineering school to Rensselaer and studied plastics. And I had a career around the country doing plastics engineering. I was in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Cincinnati, Ohio, and all over the country. I hit 48 states traveling around, and also lived in Vienna, Austria, working as a plastics engineer, and kind of realized that there's no place like Maine. And you kind of had to leave to find that out, and ended up coming back to Maine to start a plastic company. So that's kind of the arc of at least the beginning of my career.
Well, I have so many comments to make about your background. One thing is, I love Tumbledown Mountain, and I remember hiking up years ago when I had a yellow lab who's now gone to heaven, unfortunately. But there was one part of the trail where there's sort of a rock formation, and I think I remember pushing my dog up through the hole in the rocks. Do you know that trail?
No, it's the Loop Trail, and that's called Fat Man's Misery.
Yeah. Well, I think my dog and I were both fairly miserable trying to get up through that hole in the rock, but it's a good memory now. Now, and the other thing, as far as studying plastics, is it the Graduate movie that has the famous line about plastics being the future.
Plastics, my boy. Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people have said that to you over the years.
I've heard it a time or two, but it was a great field. So I started a company which continues to do well in Biddeford. It's called Duralife Decking, highly recommended product, and company's doing well. The joke is it's doing better without me, and but I'm proud of it, and that kind of gave me a good grounding as a startup and entrepreneurship guy in Maine, and I sort of became a booster of startups in Maine after that experience because I really had a good experience. People talk about Maine as not a good place to build and grow a business, but I had completely the opposite business experience. Even as I got into trouble and downturns and tough stuff like we're going through now, I mean, the network was really there for me. So I've become kind of committed to giving back over time since that experience.
I love it. I love when you say that the network was there for me, because that is like when I beat the drum about building your network of raving fans and building a tribe. Those are people who will be there for you in good times and in bad times. And it's so important, like at a time like now, we're going through the coronavirus pandemic, and now's the time we need to be taking care of our people and our network and reaching out to people we haven't heard from. So I think that's a really critical part of building a personal brand.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny, we lack for seeing other people's faces, don't we? And as sort of human beings, and you definitely miss the networking experience. But giving a specific example, I can think of so many times in running my business where we bought a lot of sawdust as it would happen, and sawdust is a remarkably hard thing to buy in large quantities. The plant uses somewhere around 300 or 500 tons a week, so that's 15 or 20 18-wheeler truckloads per month, or per week, excuse me. And sourcing all of that material, I mean, just being able to call, and that, as that specific example, the sort of main network, it's everyone would sort of stop what they're doing and say, let's help Marty find sawdust. And, I think that's really great. And I know, I mean, obviously entrepreneurs in this time, it's incredibly difficult, but I'm looking back since I managed my business through, Lehman Brothers and so forth. And I didn't appreciate the opportunity that, I know this sounds a little trite and this is a very, very tough time, but there was, in retrospect, so much possibility that came out of the other side of that. So I'm trying to stay focused on that and keep in touch, as you say, with my network, figuring out what's ahead. And E2 Tech, for example, is going to have, we're just more needed than ever. I mean, our members are going to be the ones that build this comeback. So I'm reaching out to them constantly. I'm doing, handwritten notes. I'm sending people messages on LinkedIn. I mean, you name it, I'm doing it.
Oh, Marty, I'm so glad you brought up handwritten notes, because I feel that's like our secret weapon in our arsenal is that, today with so much communication that happens electronically and, emails are not necessarily the most keepsake items that you want to keep forever. But if you send somebody a really nice handwritten note, that's something that people might keep. I know I have a drawer in my bedside table where I keep notes from people that I want to, look at. Their notes from my mother and my late father. And those are things that mean a lot. So I really try to write people handwritten notes as well, as often as possible. And I think now more than ever, it's really important.
I've got a stack of them right here in my hand, printed by Brown Fox Printing, a business founded by my father, as it would happen. So I've got to support that business. But it's something, Nancy, that it comes a little bit out of my political campaign. Some people will know that I ran for Congress and lost, and but I had a very good experience, and have immense respect for Shelley Pingree, by the way, who beat me soundly, and I think we're friends today. But I was so gratified to receive financial contributions during that. Obviously, that's what a campaign runs on, and I felt so deeply about that, and I realized that the one thing that I could do, or at least one thing, was to send a handwritten note, and I made a real habit of that. Every single night I would go through the contributions for the day, and I would sit in my sort of basement yoga room and just crank those notes out. And it's really hard to make yourself do, but once you get rolling with it, it kind of flows and it feels meaningful. And I completely agree. You know how rarely you receive one of those, and so it just means a lot. And I like having one that has your own logo or template or whatever it is on there. It gives it additional meaning.
Absolutely. Either your own logo or Crane's Stationery, which is a brand of stationery that my mother taught me to appreciate as a child. When I had a special birthday or graduation or occasion, she would give me a box of Crane's Stationery, and to this day now I invest in that for my special notes in the mail. So
and what's old is new again, right? And I always put a business card in the envelope too.
Yeah, right. We have so much in common in that regard. And the other thing I wanted to unpack from your background and history is that you were brought up on a farm, and I feel that families that work on a farm together stay together. I think that farming is a great occupation for families, and I think it teaches a work ethic. And no matter how you feel in the morning, you got to get up and feed those animals and clean the stalls. And so I feel like farming is a really great way to bring your kids up.
As the kid, I probably disagreed. As the adult now, I do agree. And look, even what we're going through now with shortages of things and stuff like that, I do think it makes you aware of where you get your eggs and your beef and so forth, and that you do have a certain level of self-sufficiency that comes from having a farm. And it gives you a certain amount of confidence to know that you can always fall back on that. And it definitely, you're right. There's not a whole heck of a lot that's harder than getting up and getting going when it's 30 below to go out to the barn and, find out what pump is frozen and what valve is busted and stuff like that. It gives you perspective.
Right, exactly. Makes you appreciate what you have. So, Marty, you have always been very good, in my view, at public relations, marketing, personal branding. What would be your best tip for PR, marketing, social media, or personal branding?
I have a couple. I love that you asked this question. I am not sure that I am a complete expert, but I will say, and this does go back to the political campaign a little bit, I am a big LinkedIn guy, and this is kind of a dark tip maybe, but so many people in LinkedIn use their personal emails if you click on contact info, because careers change and so forth. So a lot of times if you really want to reach somebody, that is a great place to look. And it is possible to export all of that. LinkedIn doesn't make it easy, but you certainly can do that, and you own that information as part of your LinkedIn account. So as far as a pro marketing tip for being able to reach people, that's one thing. Beyond that, I think as we're trying to network more, it's remarkable, isn't it? And I really value your perspective, Nancy, how social media is back in just the last couple of weeks, right? and everyone is suddenly on Facebook again, and they're reading their email again. I'm really having that experience. So I'm trying to make sure you're doing the obvious stuff, like including social media links in event confirmation emails, and if we have speakers at E2 Tech now webinars, that their social media profiles are included, and doing a lot on Twitter with events, and adding that to our webinar platform, things like that. A little bit more up to the moment. I, to be frank, had gotten a little bit jaded on some of those things, but the value of those now is really, really back, in my opinion.
Well, that LinkedIn tip is excellent, because the fact that you can export the data and save it in a spreadsheet or in a database, I've always felt that a mailing list, especially a mailing list that includes email addresses, is really valuable, and that's an asset to your business that you can use over and over. Whereas Facebook, for example, your list of contacts on Facebook belongs to Facebook, not to you. So thank you for that. You called it a dark tip, but no, I think that's a very bright tip, as a matter of fact. And the fact that people list their personal email in the contact field on their LinkedIn profile, that's really good. Thank you for that, Martin. I like that a lot.
It's so good I hesitated to share it.
Remember, the whole spirit is to give.
Yes, that's right.
So how are you leveraging your social media to make your business, whether it's E2 Tech or any of your other businesses, more effective?
Well, something that we're doing at E2 Tech that I'm proud of is Friday Google Hangouts for students in STEM. So E2 Tech is a member-based organization with about 265 member companies, about 1,500 individual members that are mostly scientists, engineers. I always joke we're kind of the wonks or the pocket protector people, and but but they're real. We have these amazing and interesting members, and I want to do something for kids because I have young kids in 6th and 8th grade, and I know that teachers are looking for lesson plans. And at first I thought of giving actual classes on things that E2 Tech covers or is interested in, like solar or aquaculture or, transportation infrastructure. We'll often do forums on those things. But I realized curriculum-wise, those are hard to get right, and we don't have the necessary teaching credential. But our members have these amazing careers in STEM. They have done incredible stuff, running the electric grid and so forth. And if you're an 8th grader or a 10th grader or 12th grader and whatever, you're interested in science, I want to pair you up with our members. So we've been doing these on Fridays now at 1 p.m. and they've been pretty popular. So the tech is Google Hangout. And I applaud Google, in fact, for making this free for nonprofits. So the Meet platform, not just Hangout, but Meet, which is much better, is free now for nonprofits from Google. And it really lets us interact with the students. It's been so rewarding. It gives you a warm fuzzy. You have these kids coming from all over the state popping up on the screen, and I always have them type on there, where are you from, what school district, what grade, and it's pretty neat to see these kids and have them interact and meet somebody who's a vice president at an environmental consulting company, and just the value in that is really pretty gratifying.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's a really great use of technology. And I love the fact that you're getting kids from all corners of the state and, kids in rural areas who might not otherwise have access to these executives or scientists. I think that's a really great thing.
Thank you. We're doing a Women in STEM one next, and that I think is a particularly interesting one that's going to be fun, and I hope draws a lot of people.
Well, we'll get information on that from you and include that in the show notes because I'd love to see more people take advantage of that. So, Marty, how do you build educational forums?
Yes, this is a good question. So at E2 Tech, we're known for our forums and events. We consider ourselves a neutral convener, so we don't advocate. I never appear before the legislature and advocate for a particular, renewable energy bill or something like that. That's not what we do. That's not our role. We view ourselves as, and that's tough sometimes, I got to say, but that's also the magic. And people know that E2 Tech doesn't take sides. So that makes it hard to build forums. And I always tell our presenters, you can say anything you want as long as it's true. No infomercials. This isn't about your dust collecting air cleaner that you sell or something like that. This is about, larger trends in emissions or air pollution. You got to talk about those things. So, but when I first joined E2 Tech, which is almost exactly a year ago, I thought that as executive director, I would be putting these forums and events together, and I deliver them, but I don't do the program. Our program committee, which is the committee of our board, we're always looking for new board members, by the way, and puts those together. And they are people from around the state with different backgrounds in energy, environment, water, chemistry, you name it. They kind of know the voices that will complement each other well and provide, a viewpoint on one and then always the other side of the issue. And we try to bracket every issue with opposing and supporting viewpoints. A fairly good example is PFAS. People might know forever chemicals. Let me see, as a chemical engineer, can I say perfluoroalkyl substances? So, these are those non-stick chemicals, right? And they're scary. And we did a forum on that, and we had a presenter from the Maine Department of Environmental Protection. We had an environmental engineer. We had a manufacturer who uses the chemicals. And we put those people together with an impartial moderator, and we talked about, what is regulated, what is needed, what is dangerous, and what isn't. And I think it was a real eye-opener for our audience, and they came away really better informed, and then they kind of met the other people that are sort of involved in the issue. And this is an issue that's probably going to affect us for decades to come. So that's an example of what we do at E2 Tech, and that's what we're proud of. So we don't have a position on PFAS. I mean, we want a clean environment, and we want to put the right people in the room to talk about how to get to a clean environment, but we aren't ourselves advocating for a particular policy approach. So it's meaningful, and people really value it. I have to say it can be pretty hard to design a forum, though, that isn't just pro or con. Getting all those pros and cons on the same panel, that is the challenge.
Yeah, I can imagine. But I think you're playing a really vital role for people who might not necessarily have an abundance of social skills, and I'm not trying to project.
Are you harping on chemical engineers, Nancy? No, you're right. You're right. No, this is we are cabin in the woods people. It's so true.
I don't think I would, for example, become a chemical engineer, even though my father was an electrical engineer, but he actually was a sales engineer. So my father had both sides of the brain. He was very social, but he also had the engineering. So maybe I got a little bit of that, but I think I got more of the social than the engineering side. I remember him talking about his customers, and he really was very good at forging those long-lasting relationships of know, like, and trust, which is so critical for business. So I think you're doing that too, though, by convening STEM professionals and bringing young people in. I think it's really an interesting and vital role that you're playing at E2 Tech.
Yeah, thank you. It will be interesting for us to adapt. We are doing a forum, for example, on Earth Day, which is April 22nd. And we have had this planned for quite some time, as you can imagine. And we are now doing the digital edition, as you can imagine. So we still anticipate a good attendance. This will be, I think, now our second significant digital event. And it's really interesting. We reach people that we would not have reached because of proximity. You know, if E2 Tech is doing an event in Portland at 7:30 a.m., as much as I would love to bring people in from Bangor or Carthage, you probably aren't going to. But obviously with digital, that isn't an issue. And that is positive, really positive. The magic is going to be, and I'm not saying we've figured this out, we're certainly trying, but, before I ran E2 Tech, I wasn't always great at paying attention during the presentations, but man, I was on it during the networking, right? And obviously during the doing digital, we want to capture the magic of the E2 Tech networking, and I'm all ears for suggestions on how to do that, because we're pulling in a lot of new and different people, but getting them to meet each other, I'm not sure we've figured that out yet.
Well, there has to be some kind of a game. Maybe you could make it a competition where they have punch cards or some kind of question, so it's almost like a scavenger hunt. And then they get a prize if they ask the most questions of other people or meet the most people or something like that.
Yeah, I think we're taking it back to LinkedIn. I think looping attendees on LinkedIn, using our E2 Tech LinkedIn group, and getting, I love connecting people. Frankly, I wish that was kind of easier on LinkedIn sometimes. I wish you could just drag two profiles across the screen or whatever and do a quick little intro. But I'm going to have to work really hard at that part, because I want attendees who do pay to come to our stuff, and our sponsors pay to be recognized and featured. I want them to see, that value of being associated. We are a membership group and as well, and the value of membership is pivoting. I think it's going to be there. I think it's even going to be increased, but it's I'm all ears for figuring out how to do it right.
Well, I love that you said that you want to get people to connect on LinkedIn, because that is the whole premise of the PR Maven podcast, is that people need to grow their network both in person and online. And I'm a big advocate for if you meet somebody in person, that you connect online so you can extend the relationship. And if you meet someone online, that you should endeavor to meet them in person, because that's really where the magic happens between two individuals, is when they're in the same space, which of course during this coronavirus, we're being discouraged from meeting people at face to face. So now is the time to really delve into your LinkedIn and your social media connections, and then we should be looking forward to meeting face to face when we're all healthy again, hopefully soon, and hopefully we all come out of this healthy. So Marty, we're going to go to a break. We're going to continue our conversation with Martin Grohman shortly, but I want to share with our listeners from PR Maven Nation that we have a listener line, and you can call in to 207-620-9075 and record a question or leave feedback or ideas for the podcast, and we'll play that on the podcast, and I will respond. We're going to take a quick break and be back in just a moment.
This podcast is all about growing your network in order to strengthen your brand. In my 30-plus year marketing and PR career, I have seen many organizations waste their precious time and money on marketing because they're trying to obtain success without any strategy to achieve their goals. So many organizations and companies suffer from what I call the shiny object syndrome, trying every new fad that comes down the pike. That's why I created the Marshall Plan 15 years ago. We have done over 100 of these plans for clients, helping them to get out of their day-to-day routine to identify their goals, solidify their brand story, focus in on their ideal customer avatar, analyze their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and create a realistic budget and measurement dashboard. We create the Marshall Plan collaboratively with our clients over the course of 3 months. We have a 65-step process to create a highly customized, actionable plan. And it's not like we come in and say, we are the consultants from away and we know everything. Instead, we come in and say, let's sit down at the table with your leadership team and we'll bring our expertise in what's working in PR and marketing. And our client team brings their knowledge of what's working in their organization. And together we come up with a really amazing plan. For many, it's been a transformative process. I have watched how teams have come together and their faces light up because they have such a sense of accomplishment and they're so excited about the future of their organization. We help our client figure out the best way to implement the plan, sometimes using people within their organization and sometimes with our help. We would love to chat with you about how you can expand your network and achieve your marketing goals with a Marshall Plan. Go to marshallpr.com/MarshallPlan to learn more about the process, or better yet, send me an email at nancy@prmaven.com and we'll set up a time to talk and get started. And now back to our conversation.
Welcome back, and today we're talking with Martin Grohman, Executive Director of E2 Tech and host of the Grohman Show, and I want to dive right back in with some more questions. Marty, can we talk now about Maine's carbon footprint and what's going on with the Maine Climate Council?
Yeah, for sure. So in my role at E2 Tech, I'm very involved with the Maine Climate Council. I'm a member of the Energy Working Group, which is trying to percolate up suggestions about reducing emissions and pollution related to our electric use. The council was appointed by Governor Mills and the legislature, and really, this is classic Maine. I mean, so many people are giving of their time and effort to bring forth their professional expertise completely as volunteers to make this overall recommendations that the governor and legislature could implement to sort of help Maine transition to a clean economy. I have a take on this. So here goes. So after selling my composite decking company, we were acquired by a big national manufacturer called GAF. GAF makes the Timberline asphalt shingle, which you may have seen in Home Depot and other products like that. And they didn't have at that time, this was 2009, 2010, anyone doing sustainability. They didn't have a job title in their C-suite, director of sustainability or, corporate sustainability officer or anything like that. So I'd always had a passion for that. I built a company around recycling number 5 plastic, which is yogurt tubs and hot fill dairy, together with sawdust, right? And we made this premium product out of what was previously essentially junk. And I like featuring that kind of thing. So I went to the leadership of GAF and I said, hey, can I do this for the company? And after some back and forth, we got to a yes. And I helped build out that effort within the company. And I did it by finding things that made economic sense as well as environmental sense. I knew that we could, the company needed to continue to make a profit. So we would, I would help identify areas where there was waste, where there was materials that were being recycled or being landfilled that could be recycled and things like that. So that is my perspective. I always want to find those kinds of opportunities, and I have pushed the Maine Climate Council to think along those lines as well. We need to be environmentalists, but we also have to have an economic viewpoint to it. And I think we should all be remembering that and getting involved with the Maine Climate Council. I know that there's this massive pivot going on, and we're showing really what's possible environmentally right now, because so much of Maine's emissions, actually more than half, are transportation. And in the last few weeks, that has dropped incredibly, and it's not a silver lining. I don't see it that way to this coronavirus crisis. Absolutely not. I mean, we got to bring the economy back. But if we can hang on to some of these elements where we reduce emissions by some of these new habits and build a cleaner infrastructure going forward, the Maine Climate Council is going to be the vehicle to hang on to those things. So I really encourage people to get involved. The URL is really simple. It's just maine.gov/future.
Okay, maine.gov/future. We'll put that in the show notes. And I do believe that it's really vital that we bring environmental and economic concerns together to the table because we need to have a vital economy in our state to grow and move forward. But we also have to be very wary or very conscious that it's our environment that attracts people to move here, whether they're coming to live or coming to visit as tourists or coming here as students. So isn't it great that we have the Maine Climate Council that's dealing with these really important issues head on?
Yeah, it's a good vehicle. And I confess I've been through a bit of a journey on it where I said, look, I'm busy. I can't do all this. Why am I getting involved with, one more thing? It's like being on another board. But then I had a little personal Marty hissy fit about it. Fortunately, no one was around to see it. But then I realized, okay, this is a big opportunity, and it's a way to give back. So, do it if you can, and you don't need to be appointed. Anybody can come and bring your perspective. Because I do know one thing: if the plan doesn't involve all of us, right? When it's released and the kind of legislation hits the street, it's going to fail. It has to be a broad collaboration.
Broad collaboration. I love that. So, Marty, you have the Grow Maine show, and I was very honored to be a guest on your show recently. You have hosted the Grow Maine show for 7 years. And what has led you to keep hosting it, even though so many people would have quit after 7 years or even before 7 years?
Yeah, I have a hard to kill management style, Nancy. It's it isn't always a great thing. Trust me. I don't know if it comes from the farm or what, but you're just like, oh, okay, the tractor's broke. All right, I'm we're gonna put some hay string on it, and that'll work. Also, a fun fact is that I think essentially the Lord of all podcasters is John Lee Dumas, an entrepreneur on fire, who is from Waterboro, Maine, and we started on the same day, and one of us has been successful. Which I think it was back in 2013. So I was focused always, of course, Grow Maine is it's a pun or a play on my last name, which is Grohman. And I wanted to feature Maine entrepreneurs who had done well and try to change perceptions around doing business in Maine, and also change perceptions around business overall, that for any problem we need to solve, a growing, successful business is part of the solution, not part of the problem. And, I felt there was a bit of an oppositional relationship sometimes between people involved in social causes or environmental causes versus business. And I wanted to change that, having run a business that really helped people grow their careers, I hired a guy in 2001. I think he was, 26 years old, and he worked on an extrusion line. And I actually just saw him the other day, and he still works for the company. He's the plant manager. He's married. His kids are going to college. He owns his house. All of that stuff built on this company that recycles sawdust. I mean, to me, that's the dream. And that, I guess, is the passion that managed to carry me forward through the dark times of self-producing a podcast. And now, I'm blessed to have high-profile guests like yourself on, and blessed to have it on WGAN, airing Sunday mornings at 11. So it's been a total game changer because, as you know, you're pushing this podcast out into the world, and you go through this arc in 2013, 2014, where you're explaining to everybody what a podcast is and how to get it on their phone, and they're kind of nodding their head going, nah, I don't want to do that. And now when you talk to people, they say, oh, yeah, a podcast, you and everybody else. So the combo with radio has been good because I reach people who would never hear about the podcast otherwise because it's hard to push out. So it really contributed to the growth. And I'm blessed to have a sponsor too, the Maine Technology Institute, mainetechnology.org. I wouldn't be able to do the thing without them. And so it's just a hobby, though. I don't make any money from it. At one point, I did make $200 by having a sponsor, the very wonderful Dunham Group. But that money went to me, and I didn't feel good about that. Now, the Maine Technology sponsorship goes to production costs. It's just a hobby for me. I don't make any money on it. And that's right where I want to be with it. It's just I'm putting it out there in the world, ideally for the greater good.
Well, I think it's terrific, and I do remember being on the Grohman show probably in its infancy when you came to my office in Augusta on Western Avenue many, many years ago.
Yep.
And then I was there again at WGAN Radio. So I love the fact that you're giving voice to so many interesting people and organizations. And of course, you mentioned John Lee Dumas, who I think is fantastic, and he is a humble Mainer who has been actually incredibly successful with his podcast, Entrepreneurs on Fire. So shout out to JLD and his successful podcast. I didn't realize you had both started on the same exact day. That is amazing.
I know. It's so funny. I wrote to Nancy Stroney of SCORE, obviously a legendary Maine mentor and entrepreneur for businesses. And I wrote to Nancy as I was publishing the thing. And I said, hey, Nancy, I got this great new podcast I'm putting out. And I did not at all get the reaction I expected when she wrote back and said, oh, so is this other guy. I thought, what? But, John Lee is a military veteran, and he brings a rigor to it, perhaps from that background where he has very set business processes, and he publishes on a schedule, he promotes on a schedule, and that is a magic that I didn't do. I didn't follow that, and that now with WGAN, I am held to that rigorous schedule because we have a show every single week. And that has also been something I think I often ask. Now I am asking guests on my podcast about business processes because of that and that experience and realizing that really wasn't that hard. I just have to do those 5 steps every week. Boom, it's done. And it has this magical effect where people know, okay, Grohman Show is going to come out. It's going to be the radio Sunday. It's going to be in my phone Monday. Boom. And that just makes all the difference in the world.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because having processes and procedures is really important to having a successful business. And I know that because I have a really strong team at Marshall Communications that helps keep me on track as far as all of the steps that we go through with the PR Maven podcast. it's operational. It operationalizes the whole thing, and that's something that I learned years ago. When growing my own business, is as many processes and procedures as you can put into checklists and create sort of a repeatable series of steps. That's the key to being able to bring in new people, for example, and training new people and pushing responsibilities down. Otherwise, businesses like my own that are owned by an entrepreneur aren't going to be sustainable because the entrepreneur can't do everything. So thanks to John Lee Dumas for inspiring us with his business processes. And I also think that there are entrepreneurs like you and me who we're more of the visionaries, so we're always kind of on to the next thing. And I think it's really helpful to have a checklist, so we're kind of saying, oh yeah, yesterday we were going to follow through on this, and here's the list of things we need to get done to complete that project before we move on to the next shiny object.
The curse of the entrepreneur. I agree.
So, Marty, is there a resource such as a book, a website, an app, or something that you have found helpful in your career, and why?
Yes. So I use an app called Workflowy. Workflowy is free. It is a list-making tool, and it allows you to keep track of stuff within on a web browser and also in the app on your phone. So if you think of it, put it in your little Workflowy, and then you get the satisfaction of checking it off. And over the years of using Workflowy, which I've probably used for 5 or 7 years now, I have my Workflowy up right now, and I have the first thing on my screen there. It says, set your intentions. And that's something that I try to remember. So in each task, as I jump to the next task, I try to set my intentions. I try to remember that. And then within Workflowy, you'll appreciate this, Nancy. I have a list in here that says my brand. What is my brand? And I try to think about that as here's what it says in my brand: diversity, recovery, clean energy, full-on gutsy entrepreneurship, share what you learn, teach what you know. So I have those 6 bullet points under my brand in Workflowy. I may add to them. I'll probably never check any of those things off because I'm always trying to achieve them. But it's a great little place for me to refocus. When I'm sitting and feeling scattered and thinking, I have some time, what should I be doing next? I'll check Workflowy, and I'll put stuff in there, that one of the things it says on there is, my daughter is Hannah, build Hannah a tree house. And I have that on my to-do list. And Hannah got a hold of my Workflowy and added all these little comments in there. And underneath that one, she put yes in capital letters.
I think that's so cute. That's awesome.
I did do it too.
You did do it?
I did. Yeah. I ended up building 3 little perches out there in the trees, and actually through, having to stay at home, the kids are out there climbing up in the woods out back. And so, yeah, if I put it in Workflowy, it will get done. It might not get done right away, but I see it. I don't forget about it. And it's been a real go-to tool for me, and it's free.
That sounds like a really awesome tool, and I love the fact that your daughter, Hannah, gets in there and adds her editorial comments.
Yes, I saw those popping up one day, and I said, wait a second, what happened here?
So, Marty, I suspect you're going to say that LinkedIn is the answer to this question. What are some of the best ways that members of PR Maven Nation can get in touch with you?
Yep, definitely. I am LinkedIn / M Grohman. My email is super easy. When I joined E2 Tech, I said, can I just be Marty, Marty at e2tech.org. A little secret about me, which is I actually don't prefer Marty to Martin. My name is Martin, but Marty is so much easier, and Martin is a name that's a little bit harder to say. Even I am a bit of a mumbler. So Marty at e2tech.org is a great way to get in touch with me. Something that's fun also, I am not a Zoom pro, okay, Zoom video calling. However, you know how you have this experience, Nancy, when something new gets big. Like, remember Twitter? You look now, you see people who have Gmail addresses that are easy, like just their name. And you think, man, you must have got into Gmail early. Or Twitter, where you have a handle like that. You must have got into Twitter early. Now's the time to get into Zoom. I will tell you that. Zoom, your username can only be a number, but I got in there and I got my cell phone number as my Zoom ID. So if you want a Zoom call with Marty, it's just zoom.us 207-423-8260. And I thought, oh man, so all the 207s are not taken yet in Zoom. And so get in there and get a number in there that makes sense. That's another thing that I think is fun to do.
Well, that's a really good tip. And I think with a lot of people working at home right now, more and more people are using Zoom. So I know we are with my team, and I've appreciated it so much. It's nice to be able to see people's smiling faces.
It sure is. It sure is. Yeah, I think it's like elemental. It's amazing that, we as people, you forget. You need that. I do anyway. I know you do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're social creatures, and some of us are more social than others.
Yeah. You're at the 100 on the scale.
Well,
which is
Martin, I'm going to call you Martin because I never knew that you appreciated Martin more than Marty. So, Martin Grohman, this has been fantastic. I've so enjoyed this conversation, and I hope that our listeners do too. I'm sure they will. I look forward to seeing you again in person, hopefully, but I guess we won't be doing handshakes. We're probably going to be doing well, I don't even know if we're going to be doing fist bumps. We're going to maybe do that namaste thing. But in any case, I look forward to seeing you again in person. But in the meantime, thanks for joining me this morning, and everyone at PR Maven Nation appreciates your time.
Namaste.
Namaste. Have a great week, PR Maven Nation.
That's it for this week's episode. I'd like to thank you for listening, and if you feel that you've gotten value out of today's conversation, consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes or whatever app you're using to tune in. If you haven't subscribed yet, you should do so. I release a new episode each week, and subscribing will make sure you get an alert when there's a new episode. You can also join the PR Maven Nation by going to prmaven.com/nation and clicking join. It's free, and it's a great community of like-minded individuals who are all looking to learn and grow from one another. If you have an Alexa-enabled device, be sure to add the PR Maven Marketing Minute to your daily flash briefing menu. Thanks again for listening, and have a great rest of your week, PR Maven Nation.